Need my book.
You got the book with you?
No, for my next appointment.
Uh, okay. Sometimes it says it doesn't go through, but then it
I think we're
does.
live.
Okay, good. We are live here with Quantum Leap, and welcome everyone. We are in for a treat today. Jason Cutter, a sales expert and podcaster. So we have lots to talk about, and we're excited to have him back on the broadcast. He also has a great book, which we're gonna. I think I see it in the background, or is that a different book? Selling with Authentic Persuasion.
That was the first one. That was the main one. A couple more have come out. Maybe at least one more since our conversation. So
Okay, great. We'll talk about those, and I do want the links to those. I'll put them in the chat as well. But first, I just want to introduce Cory, and then I have a kind of a quick little share that's a fun item for about a minute or so. If Cory, if you don't mind, just
Hey everyone,
introducing
Cory
yourself.
and I here. I am a business coach and co-host with the podcast, David Carson, and my company is Take Wing Coaching.
Yeah, and great. I just wanted to do a quick little update here. We have a great photos of Mike Macedonio, our friend and colleague who we had on with Ivan Meisner, who is the founding visionary officer of BNI. So he's out there with Richard Branson out at Necker Island, and we're consider that a quantum leap by anyone's measure on this show. So we're excited for them and their fun trip out there. Just want to give an update on a couple of our favorite people here on Quantum Leap, and do check out that episode if you missed it. Ivan Meisner was amazing on that show about networking up. So, and with that, we're gonna get right to Jason. He's done so much since we probably last talked, so I want to have him just give an introduction. But he's really an expert on sales and a thought leader also on sales, a podcaster, and I'll have him tell us some of the rest of the stuff that you do. But welcome, Jason. If you don't mind, just give him a little intro to you, because I don't have the formal bio, and tell us a little bit about your work and the latest books that you have out.
no, and I appreciate that. The internet is full of formal bios all over the place. That's why I always tell people, like, if they want to look it up, they can find me. I am the #1 ranked Jason Cutter on Google, so it makes it easy. But David, Cory, super excited to be back on the show. Yeah, so I am focused on helping people sell and be more effective, mostly in a world where people dislike salespeople or think that you have to do gross manipulation to be effective in sales or to make a lot of money. And some of us were raised very anti-sales. In fact, my bachelor's degree is in marine biology, and I chose sharks over people as a much safer career choice in life. But then, paths in the universe took me different directions, and I found out I was pretty good with people. So I focus on developing authentic persuaders, and that means helping people realize who they are and then how to persuade people effectively, no matter what industry, no matter what product or service. The fundamental basis, it's not B2C or B2B, it's H to H, right? It's human to human. And once you understand that, things get a lot different and easier, just like the stuff you guys talk about with the networking and the relationships.
Yeah, great. And if you don't mind just taking us through a few of the concepts in your book, I think if people are going to start somewhere with sales, they should pick that up and then also listen to your podcast. I think we'll kind of give a crib sheet to some of the highlights today, but I know the crux is authentic sales, which is such a unique thing, but you really explain what that means and in plain language, if there's some things that people might be able to glean out of that book initially.
I think one of the biggest things that resonates with people who might not have thought about sales or kind of fell into sales or aren't sure if they have sales material or if they're cut out for it is, in my firm belief, sales professionals and people who are professional salespeople are made, not necessarily born. Yes, there's certain traits that help, right? Like charisma and extroversion and those kind of things can help to a certain degree. I would also argue that the world hears those kind of salespeople and encounters those kind of salespeople and says, all right, what's the catch? And why are you so excited to sell me this, right? So it actually can make things harder. But for me, there's 5 sales success traits, which anybody listening or watching this, like, you can develop these. I'm a perfect example. Again, a shy, awkward, bullied, late blooming only child who didn't do well with people for the longest period of my life. Like, I shifted from what I liked into helping people. And the top two are openness and curiosity. When you're open and curious about things, your product, people, the world, then you approach sales differently. And then the other ones on the list are um, persistence, creativity, and authenticity. And so in that order, because the problem is a lot of people think to being successful in sales, you have to be very persistent. But if you're not open and curious about people and who you're trying to help, you're just a kind of a persistent ass. And that's kind of what gives sales a bad name.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty interesting market out there in terms of sales. I think there's still a lot of people out there that are afraid to go out and sell something. I see some of the greatest sales people that I know, they almost don't need any other marketing or materials. They can just sit down, and if you have a high value product, maybe something, like a coaching program that's maybe $5,000 or $6,000, they don't need any materials. They can just sell that to somebody, straight off when you're good at that. And something I'm kind of working on is I have this new masterclass, which is kind of an entry level product it's on sale for $395 right now, which is kind of the gateway to one of those bigger coaching programs. So that's kind of a quicker conversation. But what would you tell somebody like me who how you could help them to really just get started with a little bit better sales conversation? Or do you offer kind of consulting on how to structure that? And I have had some help in the past, and my mentors, I consider one of the greatest salespeople who you may have met, Pradna Leitner. We've had her on the broadcast, but yeah.
I think the biggest thing, and of course I have a course and a program and the stuff that I do, but I think the biggest part is understanding the value to the potential buyers and the buyers, right? Is what will this do for somebody? How will it help them get to a better place? And will it, right? Like, once you qualify someone to determine, yes, this is a good fit for you, yes, it will leave you better than I found you, then in my opinion, you actually owe it to somebody as a professional and your professional responsibility and duty to help move them forward. And that shifts things, right? Like, if we think about it using an analogy most people understand, is when you go to the doctor, you go to an emergency room and you have a serious problem, and the doctor says, they go through their exam, they go through everything, and then they say, you need to get this fixed. We need to fix this for you right now. That doesn't feel gross or pushy because they're a professional, you trust them, and they did their due diligence, right? Like, they had their process. For salespeople, they feel weird if they get to that point and they're telling people what to do. Also, the doctor has the test they've done, but they don't have a slide deck on why you need brain surgery in that moment. Like, literally, they're not giving you a brochure about it or walking you through a PowerPoint. Like, it just is. And I think there's a lot to that, where in sales, it can be helpful to have those aids. Sometimes, people use it as a crutch to help them avoid the stuff they don't want to just talk to people about, right? For people sold a lot of high value things for a long time without slide decks and PowerPoints and brochures and stuff like that. So I also think it's really about value. It's about the ROI. If you're selling something and it's just immense value to somebody, like if you gave me $20 and I gave you $100 back, how eager would you be to do that if you trusted me to fulfill it?
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I know with this masterclass, there's so much value there for the 395 or and just in thinking kind of, since we have a bit of time, the anatomy of a good sales conversation. I think from my own experience, there's no shortage for experience. I'm a natural at selling my video stuff. I don't even think of it as a problem. I can just pick up and tell them, hey, you need this. And they go, yes, that's more or less the conversation in a lot of ways. There is a lot of times hangups on video, for example. So I think, and I've heard that my business coach describe it to me before, that there's often just these kind of key hangups that people have about a certain product, or maybe it's their personality. Cory has this great course about examiners versus go-getters. Go-getters, you want to sell them something, hey, here you go, buy it, and then they go, oh, they already maybe heard about you, okay, I'm in. Others take a little bit more cajoling, and I'm gonna have Cory maybe explain a little bit about those personality types, but I was just curious if you have any thoughts on, like, that experience thing, and then what people can just think about to start just setting up a sales conversation initially to really just get started if they have a new product. A lot of people I talk to have courses, for example, and I tell them anything really over a few $100s, you're often going to have to connect with that person in some way to give them
Yeah.
some security, especially if it's $1,000 or more. So it's going to be a sales conversation, and a lot of them approach it, their course teachers, their academics. You don't want to sell the academics, you got to be more of a salesperson.
Well, so I think the so many points relative to what you said. If you have something of value, something where in a lot of the companies I deal with, they deal with what's called a considered purchase, where is this a good fit for me, yes or no? And if yes, option A or option B, like what should I do and what's the best thing for me? And now considered purchase is fascinating from a psychological standpoint, but because it's not about price, it's about the what that means to that individual, right? It could be someone who's trying to make a decision on a $100 a month membership box club, right? That gets shipped to your house. Like that could be a considered purchase. It could also be, a $5,000 course, or, however much it costs to go to Necker Island with Richard Branson, right? Like the considered purchase is relative to each person. When you're talking about a considered purchase, very rarely are you going to get the easy way out and just sell it online with some kind of funnel where people are just going to buy it. Unless you're a master at the funnel, you've built the relationships, you have the brand, you have the proof. You're not selling something of a higher ticket value without it being an enrollment meaning a conversation, a relationship building, and then taking them through a process. And a lot of people, and I will default to that myself sometimes, where it's like, let me just build this. It's so amazing. Let me put it out there and Field the Dreams this thing, right? Like if I build it, they're going to come, and then it doesn't work that way, right? No, unless you have an unlimited marketing budget and you can just spend as much money as possible running ads, but even that doesn't work because people are desensitized to all that crap, as Cory's shaking his head as well. And so you have to build a process. For me, and I'll share with you one of the biggest things I'm teaching and training people on and speaking about is so many people, when they build something and they're trying to sell it, or they work for a company trying to sell the company's product, right? Like you go work for Salesforce and you're selling Salesforce, or whatever it is, you think you're amazing, the company thinks you're amazing, and what you're selling is amazing and is going to change lives, right? And that's fair, because nobody starts a business and says we are mediocre and average at best, and hopefully people won't notice how crappy this is, and let's just get a bunch of people to buy it, right? I think there's actually some people who do that, but I'm not talking to them. I'm talking to everybody else. So here's the thing, is that by default, as humans, we are horribly self-centered. It works well from a survival standpoint, but it's terrible for relationship building and conversations. And so what happens is you have a very self-centered salesperson talking to a very self-centered potential buyer. Now, the challenge is, and this is the super short version of this, is when you're selling something, you're playing the part of a hero because we all think we're the hero in our own story, right? Like nobody's driving around going, I'm just the extra in that person's story on their way to work, and let's just see how this plays out. Like, no, why is everyone in my way? This is about me. Everyone needs to move. And so what happens is you have the salesperson hero battling the customer hero, and the customer is not going to say, oh, you're a better hero than me, I'll just back down. And they don't go through a process. So one of the biggest mindset shifts I've been helping people with is understanding their role is to be a guide, right? Their role is to be Yoda, not Luke Skywalker, right? Because if you're not careful, you'll end up be Darth Vader in the minds of your prospects, and they'll think you're the enemy and they're battling you. So you as a guide, then you build a different conversation and process. And this literally, like even going to what we're talking about with building a course and putting it online or any kind of business, is literally, if you go to 99% of business websites, funnels, things like that, it's about, we're so amazing, we built this, we're great, look at us, you want this, here's our testimonials about other people who said we're amazing. And nothing about that person who's reading it, who's self-centered as a human, going, what about me? What about my challenge? Where am I at? If you literally rewrite your website in like a hero's journey story mode, it's amazing, because people will go, oh, that's me. Oh, here I am. Oh, you can help me get here. that's great, right? Not just about how amazing I am. And then the last part before I forget, regarding what you mentioned with Cory, is one of the defaults, because we're self-centered humans and we only care about ourselves if we're not careful, is we also sell the way we like to buy. And if you're not careful, you will try to sell to everyone the way you are as a customer. If you're overly analytical, you'll try to give everyone stats and figures and all of that stuff, and you'll drive most of the people mad. If you don't like that stuff, you will drive most of the people mad with your excited extrovert charisma, FOMO sales tactics. And so you really have to like step back as a guide and sell to everyone the way they want to be sold.
Yeah, that's so well put. I have a wild card question, but I'm going to put that in the parking lot for now because I want to get to Cory. If Cory, I don't know if you have any thoughts on that, on Room Full of Referrals, and Cory's has a lot of great knowledge on sales too. So feel free to chime in here, Cory. And
I'm kind of like you, Jason, except I don't have that the directness, right? So and so that's where we talk when he's talking about Room Full of Referrals. It's DISC, which I'm sure you're familiar with, and we use that in networking communications versus what kind of job should somebody be doing, right? So traditionally, it's always been, your D does sales and your C and S are, relationship builders and account managers and things like that. And the fact is anybody can do sales. And I've seen, I remember one time I had this financial advisor who came to the course and I asked her, so how do you get business? She said, I just go knocking on doors. And she was the total C, right? And C's are typically very kind of, not very interactive with people. I said, I can't believe you just go knocking on doors. He says, oh yeah, I just, I have a system and it works, and so she keeps at it and quite successful at it, I think. And so we talk about that in terms, but ultimately it is bringing out authenticity. It's talking to people the way they want to be talked to. Right? That's part of the communication. If we're too direct with somebody who's indirect, kind of scares them off a little bit. And if we're not direct enough with somebody who's very direct, it also scares them off a little bit. And so that's just one way of looking at it. But one of the things that we do that I was taught to do when selling coaching packages, because they're pretty expensive and it's a big investment of time, and you really want to show it that it's about them. And so we would put in our proposal a statement of belief, and show that we were listening, I believe in you and your goals, and that this goal that you have, and you lay out the goal, and this is how I believe that you are going to be successful in that. And it's how we construct that varies according to the person, but I always found it a very powerful, authentic way to show that we were actually invested in them as much as we're hoping they'll invest in us. And
yeah, and I think the biggest thing, and this is the easiest kind of quote cliche thing to always remember, which then feeds into what you were saying and what I was talking about, a guide mode, is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And that sounds soft and it sounds woo-woo and it sounds cheesy. And the hardcore boiler room, Wall Street salespeople don't want to think about that being true. But here's the fundamental truth is everything has changed in the last few years, and it's not pandemic, it's not the economy, it's not inflation, it's none of that. It's the fact that, and it just keeps getting more and more, even since we spoke the first time, is that everyone has access to all the world's information at their fingertips, which means from a customer self-centered hero perspective, they see every single brand as a commodity except for one. The only exception I can find is Apple. If you want an iPhone, you have to deal with Apple, their prices, their battery life, their customer service, their technicians. If you want an smartphone, you can get any smartphone, but if you want an iPhone, there's no competition. Otherwise, everything else is a commodity, which means if people don't think you care about them first, bye. Especially if we're talking coaching, I'll go find one of the 4 billion other coaches on the planet who have a similar commodity in the minds of consumers.
So anyway, so that kind of goes back to the question of what is as we like to ask, what is your why? What got you into this? You gave a little bit of that story, but what has specifically attracted you really to just staying with the sales and helping people in that?
One of the things I realized passively, kind of not fully, when I started on the path of wanting to do consulting, was I really enjoyed building, fixing, and helping, especially at the time I was helping outside affiliate offices, and I would go to them and I realize time loses all meaning when I'm there at an office helping people on the floor, on a sales floor, selling anything, where it's just like giving feedback. And then a couple years ago, I just spent a bunch of time and realized what my actual mission is, my personal and my professional mission is, and where that lines up. And for me, it's to facilitate transformation in three ways. It's to enable and encourage those light bulb moments, to help the underdog win their game, and to leave people better than I found them. And so for me, more than a why, like, why do I do this? It's like, that's kind of my why. And then that drives everything I do, right? Like wanting to help people and wanting to build things, wanting to write, wanting to coach, literally traveling to go to an office or go speak somewhere. It's literally for those purposes. And then it's lined up right now with wanting to help to fill the world with authentic persuaders, because sales is not a profession. There's no certification. You can be a professional salesperson, but you cannot be a sales profession, professional, right? Like you can be a plumbing professional who gets certified and has to have a license and insurance, but that's not true for sales, right? Product, maybe I have to be a licensed insurance person, but not a salesperson. And so it's really up to all of us. And the more everyone realizes what we all want as customers in our own lives, and we sell that same way, then it just changes that whole experience. And sales is ultimately about service. We all know that.
Sure.
Anyone who's watching your show knows that, right? You do it and you have something that your goal is to help other people. And so it's about, being successful at that and leaving people better than you found them.
Yeah. How would you say your podcast? So that's the next question. And I actually find this interesting because podcasting is such an interesting thing right now, where it was, really exploded. Everybody was having a podcast and they're like, okay, is it just like a commodity? But then it all kind of died down. And then there's actually, and Gail's been quoting me some statistics, but Gail is my wife and business partner and does a lot of marketing and, personal branding, which is kind of our specialty. And she was saying that podcasting is right now, there's a big demand for it and not enough supply. And because people are not really consistent at keeping up with it. So, right. So, you get a podcast going for a little bit and then it's done and they don't go on. And I admit we've done that. We've produced with David a lot of episodes, and with Gail, we produced a Bourbon and Business podcast, which we occasionally do, but I think we've got about 35 episodes out there. So what would how has the podcast helped you, and how would you suggest somebody actually get started and kind of keep creating content for it?
So the first thing is, and I don't know who to attribute this to, so I'm not necessarily going to take credit, but somebody did. It might be a Tim Ferriss. It might be one of those guys, where find something you really want to talk about and you can talk about for a very, very long time. If you're like, this is kind of interesting, it's not going to work.
Right.
Another way I've heard it is something an itch or a burn? Because if it's an itch, you're going to scratch it and then you're going to move on. If it's a burn that you must do no matter what, you're going to do that thing. And podcasts, writing a book, it's like, I talk to so many people all the time, like, oh, you've written a bunch of books, and okay, tell me about it. I thought about writing a book. It's like, yeah, well, if you thought about it, or you're going to do it. Like, how much have you written? Is it an itch or is it a burn? For me, podcasts started with just sharing a lot of content when I started consulting, and my book hadn't been published, but I was talking about the content, and then I was just starting to get clients. So it was just really me putting a ton of stuff out there. I used the podcast for several years as just social proof and validation of what I knew, such that my goal was, by the time someone came to me, whether they referred or they found me on LinkedIn, by the time we had a conversation that was like a discovery sales conversation, there was zero question of, hey, why do you think you know sales? And why do you think you're good at this? Right? Like, as of right now, between my 3 podcasts, I kind of branched out and then I went back and consolidated. It's 667 episodes since April of 2019. And I've been on like 200 as guest appearance. And so, like, again, I joked about it, but it's true. Google Jason Cutter and I dominate the first 5 pages of Google. There's like 2 others that will pop in randomly, such that it's the brand. By the time we talk, you know what I'm about, and you either like it or you don't. The other part is I love relationships. So I love talking to people, building relationships, and seeing where they go. Everyone knows somebody who's a salesperson. So maybe they can refer me. Maybe they can, introduce me to somebody. Like, maybe they're just a good resource. I have many guests where I'm like, oh, you have amazing technology. This would be good for some of my clients, right? Like you just don't know where that relationship will go. Just like us, like I have no focused intention on our relationship, but who knows where it could go, right? The two of you and myself, like who knows where that could go long term, but this is just great.
Right.
And then the third part for me is I'm just curious and I love learning. I've found the more podcasts I've done, the more curious I am and the more excited, and I just kind of get lost. And I will literally take a ton of notes during the podcast because I'm excited and I'm learning. And that always makes for the best shows. The biggest thing, and I think Tim Ferriss says this, is figure out what you want to do for a podcast, commit. I think he says 7 episodes, like 1 a week or 1 a month. Do that and then see if you like it. I'm crazy, so I committed to 5 episodes, 20 weeks, 100 episodes, and then I was going to see if I liked it. So I committed to my own self for 100 episodes in 20 weeks, and then kept going. Also, anyone starting a podcast, keep in mind, there's no rules. There's no podcast police. So I'm in between season 6 and season 7 right now as we're talking about this. I've taken 6 season breaks, which is not normally a thing. And I'm like, I need a break. I'm tired. I need to refocus. Let me recalibrate. I'm rebranding, whatever the reason might be, and be like, all right, now let's keep going. Like I always come back to it, but like take an off season, right? Like an athlete.
Yeah, we do that, and that's probably the best advice I have. Actually, a lot of other great stuff that you said there, Jason. And just a time check, we have about 2 minutes here. I just want to make a couple quick comments. You know, I just I wanted to ask you: is your book or any of your books on Audible, or do you have any audio programs to listen to about sales?
So Selling with Authentic Persuasion, Transform from Order Taker is available on Audible. So on hard copy and then Audible. If you want 5.5 hours of me, it is there. The other 2 are not. The other 2 that I have are reasons to not focus on the sales experience. And then I'm also a contributing author for Voices for Leadership, Volume 1, and then Volume 2 coming out next month. Those are not on Audible, but they are on Amazon.
Yeah, well, I actually think you have such a great voice for sales, and I think that your books and your materials, that this stuff is, the thing that I found the best about podcasting is some things are learned so much easier and quicker with voice, over Audible, like how we're talking about sales right now, or how we talk about our business development stuff. I feel like that has been the difference in the content, because so few people read these days, that if they hear you talking about things in a substantive way, that's all the kind of accreditation you need, as you said.
And I think when you read, if you're not super focused, you can get distracted and forget where you are and have like, what did I just read? When you're listening, you can get distracted, but your brain is still listening and picking up on stuff. Even if like your mind is wandering, it's still taking it in. So I think you're going to retain more without even realizing it, audio versus getting distracted.
Right.
Yeah. And I know, Cory, we want to just close with, if there's anybody out there you're looking for as your ideal client, and then I want to give Cory a chance to make any comments, but we're just about at time. We can take another minute or 2
No,
here.
thank you for being on. Yeah, it's always good to, get some ideas on sales, and everybody's got a journey in that regard. So we've all got to benefit from learning as much as we can about it.
So, and to your question too about ideal. So here's what's super fascinating is because of the fact that I focus on any industries, really it's mindset. What I look for is companies that are open-minded and want to grow and learn. So many companies think they're God's gift to sales and business, and they think they know it all and they built the perfect machine. That's great. Keep doing that. Anybody who's open and wants to get better or learn new things or relearn or remember what they used to do years ago, that's always, industry doesn't matter. Size doesn't matter. It's all about mindset for me.
Excellent. Well put. And I'm looking forward to sharing the links and also inviting you back soon. I got to do some more research on some of your new stuff. And we always have so much great stuff to talk about. So well done. That's, I think, our best episode yet with you, Jason. And Cory, did you have any closing thoughts forward?
No, thank you for being here, and look forward to seeing you again soon.
Great.
Thanks, guys, for having me.
Well, bye, everyone. Stay tuned for the next segment of Quantum Leap coming up here in just a couple minutes. Thank you.
Thank you.